Filmmaker in Focus is a podcast featuring the filmmakers of the Maine Outdoor Film Festival. Today's episode features Jessica Wilde, filmmaker of the 2022 MOFF selection, Dreams Inherited.
The Maine Outdoor Film Festival is an annual celebration of outdoor adventure, conservation, and film held each summer in Portland.
Hello and welcome to the Maine Outdoor Film Festival's Filmmaker in Focus podcast. I'm Meg Friel. Today I'm going to be joining Jessie Wilde, filmmaker of Dreams Inherited. I'm just going to slide on over into Jessie's space. Jessie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about Dreams Inherited.
Well, Dreams Inherited is a short film that I put together about the sailboat that my husband and I refurbished and live aboard. So we spent many years working on it and living on it, and I've kind of been capturing footage of it along the way on, all of the projects that we worked on and then all of our trips offshore. And I wanted to weave together a storyline of my grandfather as well, because my grandfather built a boat himself completely from scratch in his backyard in Jacksonville, Florida, and he never really got to enjoy it. So our dream of sailing is sort of stems from that that inspiration to kind of live life while you can. So I put together this short film to kind of capture that.
Yeah, awesome. Let's take a look at a clip from Jessie Wilde's film Dream Inherited.
When you're dreaming of sailing into the sunset, the best place to start is not the internet. It's not the clear teal water, or rolling waves, or edited versions of other people's dreams. Instead, find that very back part of a boatyard, where boats go to die and the grass grows up around them and their insides are gutted. And know that they all once had a name.
So I'd love to hear, Jessie, how did you get into filmmaking?
I actually went to journalism school. I had gone to school undergraduate for writing, and I was always interested in kind of the writing side of my creativity. And then in journalism school, I learned video production, and I totally fell in love with it. And it started kind of with news storytelling, but the same things are there in all facets of, I think, storytelling. It's finding that part that people can relate to. And it's the same thing with writing. So that's kind of how I got into filmmaking. And then I decided that I wanted to do that for my full-time job as well.
Nice. And could you talk a little bit about how your career has developed from when you were in journalism school and first started getting to filmmaking as to where you are now and like what sort of projects you're working on now?
Yeah, so I kind of left news and went into video storytelling for a couple different groups of community college and then a medical school, and now I produce videos for NASA. So social media videos and live TV shows and things like that. But that's all kind of my professional life, and then the boat videos are kind of just my personal hobby project. So I try to do that in my free time, but I'm producing videos all day as well.
Nice. Yeah, I saw on your website that you're a video producer for NASA, which is must be such an amazing experience. So how did you sort of trail off from doing this professional work into doing this sort of passion project? What made you want to film this idea of reconstructing this boat and putting out to sea?
There's so many visual components to sailing. I mean, even the projects alone were there's so much to capture, and I think a lot of people have curiosity about it too. So I completely redid the ceiling on the boat, and that doesn't mean anything to anyone unless you can kind of see what goes into it, completely down to grinding down the fiberglass on the ceiling, and you're wearing a complete bunny suit so you're not covered in fiberglass, and then learning how to epoxy and cutting with a jigsaw and a chop saw. And, it's such a visual thing. And honestly, there's a lot of sounds as well. So as we were going through the process, it's hard to kind of stop what you're doing in the middle of a project and document it. But I kept telling myself, just do it. Take the time aside and do it, because you'll want to do something with it later. So, and then in the ocean, it's just you're sitting there for hours and hours and hours, and all you want to do is document it. So that's kind of where that stemmed from.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching the film. I thought it was really cool to watch you guys work on the boat and then have it out to sea. There are some some really intense moments out there. Is there anything that you left out of the film, any other moments like that that you didn't include in the film that you wanted to share?
Yeah, we've had a lot of just kind of interesting situations in the ocean. We always joke that something goes wrong on every trip, and if it doesn't, you're kind of like, what's going to happen next? But we did have one particularly harrowing trip off of Cape Hatteras in North Carolina. It was our first time in the ocean, and we were pretty comfortable sailing in the Chesapeake Bay, and we thought we knew what we were doing. And then the waves in that particular area, are very bouncy, and they kind of reflect off the land. It's really shallow, and they had a long time to build up, and we were just in this like horrible like roll back and forth in the middle of the night for about, well, it went through the middle of the night, and it lasted about 15 hours. And it was just like one of those moments where you're like, I just want to get off this boat. But we pulled in, we broke a bunch of stuff, and we fixed it, and we kept going. And we've had a lot of lovely trips after that. So it's worth pushing through, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an incredible journey, and all part of it. I'm curious to know, like, how has your experience with Ling Ling evolved since the film finished, and like, where have you gone with it since finishing filming?
Oh gosh, so we did the entire Eastern Seaboard during COVID. We could finally work remote, and we were sitting there at our dock in Hampton, Virginia, and we were like, let's go. If we don't have to be here, let's go. So we kind of didn't have a goal of doing the whole seaboard, but we did. So we went down to the Keys, and we spent the winter there, and then we looked at each other and we're like, let's try to make Maine, which seems like, okay, yeah, that's easy, but it's 48 hours just to get to like West Palm Beach. and then you're working your way up the coast weekend and weekend and weekend. So we got to Maine, and it was awesome. And then we turned right back around at the end of the summer and went down to West Palm Beach again for the winter. And no, after all of this kind of transience, we decided we wanted to be a little bit more stable. I have to travel for work, and it's good to have an airport nearby and things like that, and maybe make some friends and, have a car, things that are a little bit more stable. So we still live on our boat, but we're kind of more full-time in West Palm Beach. So Ling Ling is not sailing as much as she was before, but we're trying to take her out on weekends, and we're planning a trip to the Bahamas in a couple weeks as well. So a little bit more stability than we had during COVID.
Well, wow, what an incredible project for COVID, and to be able to go across the Eastern Seaboard and the Bahamas. That sounds like it's going to be a really cool trip.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Everyone says like the water's just incredible, and it's funny because here in West Palm Beach, the water is incredible to us. We're used to the Chesapeake Bay where it's pretty murky, and here we just are going wild snorkeling every weekend. But I'm excited to see what everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. There were some really interesting shots in the film, from you being out in the water to you guys assembling the boat. What was the shot that you were most proud of, or the shot that was the most difficult to film for you guys?
Oh gosh, I think the one I'm most proud of is it's just a shot looking down in the water. I think it's one of the last shots of the film where my reflection is in the water. And then I kind of brought in a picture of my grandfather at the same time to make this kind of just relationship between the two of like, here's his dream and here's mine. In terms of most challenging, I would say capturing like night footage in the ocean on my phone has not been the easiest to do. And I think it's really hard to communicate the feeling of complete emptiness out there. I don't know that that's translated in video, but I always try to get it anyways.
I think it translated really well, like the shot where there's just cargo ships around you, and it's just the lights from the ships, and it's you guys in complete darkness. That really spoke to me. I thought you did a phenomenal job with that. It was really interesting to see. So could you talk a little bit about the success of the film? Like, where did this go after you had put it out there, and where has it gone since you've published it?
I was really excited to have it in the Maine Outdoor Film Festival. I've submitted it to a couple other festivals, waiting to hear back from some. But for me, it was really cool to have it played in that park overlooking the anchorage, because that's where we anchored with Ling Ling in Portland. So I wasn't able to go in person, but my uncle was able to go, and he took a picture. So it was kind of cool to see where it ended up.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know we were honored to have you in the film festival as well. Where can folks watch this now?
I have it on my YouTube channel, Sailing with Ling Ling. So that's where they can watch it, or on my website, jessicawilde.org.
Cool. And I know you talk a little bit about shooting with your iPhone while you're out at sea. What did you shoot on primarily, and what did you edit with after shooting?
Yeah, I shot, I have an iPhone 13 Pro, and then I have a little gimbal that I put it on so I can walk around, have it a little bit more stable. And then I have like a super minimalist gear kit because of the water. It's like you can't overcomplicate. And then I have tiny little Rode microphones that just hook on, and they make it easy to be able to just go really fast. But sometimes I won't even use the gimbal because I'm sitting there trying to hold the helm and I'm just trying to get a shot while I'm going. And then I did have access to some gear when we were doing the kind of the refurbish of the boat, some actual cameras, not just phones. But in the ocean, I think that the phone is just an easier route to go.
Definitely. I can imagine that, like trying to hold on to the helm and sail while also trying to shoot, that must have been pretty difficult.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people have autopilots. I don't know if you've heard about an autopilot or an auto helm, but it's basically like the helm is steered for you. You tell it the coordinates where you want to go, and you still have to monitor everything. But when we tell people we don't have one of those, their jaw drops. They're like, how did you sail this without an autopilot? But we just didn't have one, and we still wanted to go. So we had to like actually be holding the helm for most of the journey.
Wow. Well, it looks flawless in the film. You make it look so easy, balancing the two. I'm curious to know, as a young filmmaker, sort of just getting into this myself, what advice do you have for people who are getting into film or who want to get into film?
I would say just do it. I remember when we were starting our boat projects, a friend of mine had said, you just need to start filming what you're doing. Because I would say, I want to make a film about this, but I'm so focused on my project that I'm working on, sewing my cushions or whatever it is. And he's like, just get out your camera one day and start filming. And then you're collecting all this footage that you might one day want. And then another piece of advice, if you're filming on your phone, is film horizontally. I know you already know this as a filmmaker, but I think when people are posting to social media and stuff now, they're filming vertically, but then they can't ever use that later in a product. So,
yeah, no, that's a good piece of advice. And I think something I could benefit from. I'm curious to know just a couple more questions. What was your first experience with sailing? And like when you first did this, did you know it was something you're going to want to do for the rest of your life?
No, it wasn't. I took sailing classes when I was a little kid. My mom sailed little boats growing up, and so she put us in sailing classes. And the first thing that you do when you get to a sailing class as a kid, or probably as an adult, I don't know, is you capsize the boat. And these are little boats that are meant to be capsized, and you ride them again. But that was most of my memory of sailing classes, was like getting in and flipping over and being in the water and like trying to stand on the center board to get it right back up again. And, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life when I was 10 years old, but I didn't think I wanted to sail. And then it wasn't until later when my husband and I got married and we moved to Hampton, Virginia from DC, and we thought, let's get into something that, is kind of like the local thing, and there's so much water in that area. The Chesapeake Bay is beautiful, and it's a really great place to sail. So we just started sailing on a friend's boat. We just started crewing on Wednesday nights in races, and then we loved it. We bought a small boat, and then we bought our Ling Ling.
Nice. Yeah, I can imagine that having only the memories of like capsizing when you were learning to sail might have been something that you weren't really like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life, but it sounds like it came back to you in a really special way. Yeah, and
there's so many logistics that go into sailing, just keeping everything on the boat organized and what line goes to what. And I don't always love that part of it, honestly. My husband's very good at that part, and he gets really into, making sure everything is in tip-top shape on the deck. My favorite part is really the journey of being able to use this boat and wind and get to a new place and arrive there by boat and then make our own power with the solar panels and the wind generator. And it's kind of like the whole lifestyle for me that I really love.
Yeah, definitely. And I can see that through the film. I think that's a really important part of it and the best part of it, honestly. Okay, one last question. I'm just curious, what are you up to now? What kind of projects are you working on in this moment?
I'm actually working on writing a book right now. I've been writing, excuse me, about the whole experience for many years now, kind of working on the boat and just the whole process of creating this lifestyle and the desire for this lifestyle. And then I've been writing about the journey as well. So I'm hoping to finish it and put it together. It's kind of been my goal for the past few years. But I think I was still living in the journey as I was writing it, and now I'm kind of, I think I've reached a point where I can finish it. So that's my new project.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. I'd be excited to read that. Jessie, thank you so much for talking with us today. It was so wonderful to speak with you. I'm super excited to hear about all the stuff you have going on now, and absolutely loved watching your film, and it was really great to speak with you.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you too, and I'm excited to see any films that you create as well.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna scoot back into our studio now. That was Jessie Wilde, filmmaker of Dreams Inherited. I'm Meg Friel. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Maine Outdoor Film Festival's Filmmaker in Focus podcast. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to Filmmaker in Focus, a podcast featuring the filmmakers of the Maine Outdoor Film Festival. You can watch Jessica Wilde's film Dream Inherited in full online by visiting her YouTube channel, Sailing with Ling Ling. And for more of Jessica Wilde's work, visit jessicawilde.org. This episode was produced by Meg Friel and Nolan Lime, with assistance from Andrew Burgess, Rory Ecker, Nick Callanan, Amber Vayu, and Brendan Donahue. For more episodes of Filmmaker in Focus, visit MOFF.film. This has been an intern-produced project of the Maine Outdoor Film Festival.